16-year-old Jordan Brooks wasn't invisible, it only felt that way. Every morning she walked the crowded halls of Lincoln High School, surrounded by hundreds of students laughing, talking, and posting pictures together. She smiled politely. She answered when teachers called on her. She ate lunch alone near the library windows. No one was cruel, no one bullied her. People simply overlooked her. Sometimes Jordan wondered if loneliness was louder in a crowded room than it was in an empty one. One Friday night, while scrolling through social media, she stared at the blinking cursor in a text box. She wanted to write something profound. Instead, she typed the simplest thing she could think of. Does anyone else ever feel lonely, even when they're surrounded by people? She hesitated, then pressed post. She put her phone down and went to bed. She never expected anyone to answer. The next morning, her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. 100 notifications, then 1,000. By lunchtime, over 1 million people had seen her question. The comments weren't arguments. They weren't insults. They were confessions. I thought I was the only one. I'm surrounded by coworkers every day, but I've never felt more alone. I'm 73 years old. Thank you for asking this. I'm a soldier stationed overseas. I needed to read this today. I'm a new mom. I've never told anyone how isolated I feel. A teenage boy wrote, I was planning to give up tonight. Your question made me realize someone else understands. Jordan sat in stunned silence. She had asked one question. The world answered. Over the following days, people began responding to one another instead of just to Jordan. A college student in Brazil encouraged a retiree in Canada. A teacher in Kenya exchanged messages with a nurse in Australia. Teenagers comforted veterans. Widowers offered hope to young people grieving their first heartbreak. Complete strangers reminded one another they mattered. Someone created a hashtag You Are Not Alone. Within a week, it had been shared tens of millions of times. Schools noticed. Instead of beginning assemblies with announcements, some principals started asking one question. How is everyone really doing today? Businesses created quiet rooms where employees could simply sit and talk. Libraries hosted conversation corners for anyone wanting company. Coffee shops introduced community tables for people willing to share a meal with someone they had never met. Parks organized weekly walks for strangers. Hospitals began placing volunteers in waiting rooms, not to provide medical advice, but simply to listen. No one called it a program. They simply called it showing up. News reporters eventually found Jordan. Did you expect your post to change the world? She laughed nervously. I didn't expect anyone to read it. What inspired you to ask the question? Jordan looked down for a moment. I think I was hoping someone would answer. Months later, Jordan's school held its annual talent show. She almost didn't attend. As she walked into the auditorium, something caught her attention. Students she'd never spoken to smiled. Several waved. One girl hurried over. I've been wanting to meet you. You have? You helped me make my first real friends. Another student added, my dad joined one of the community groups because of your post. A teacher quietly whispered, thank you. Jordan looked around the room. For the first time since starting high school, she didn't feel invisible. 1 year later, a global nonprofit was created to continue the movement. Its logo was beautifully simple, a speech bubble shaped like a heart. Beneath it were just 4 words, someone is listening. The organization connected lonely seniors with students, matched volunteers with veterans, created neighborhood dinners, mentorships, and community events in dozens of countries. Researchers later discovered something remarkable. In communities where people regularly participated, feelings of isolation declined. People reported stronger friendships. Neighbors got to know one another. Volunteerism increased. The question hadn't solved loneliness, but it had given people permission to admit they were carrying it. Years later, Jordan kept a screenshot of her original post framed on her desk. Visitors often smiled when they saw it. That's all you wrote? She nodded. That's it. No inspirational speech, no grand plan, just one honest question from a shy 16-year-old who felt alone. Sometimes people asked her what she had learned from everything that followed. Jordan always smiled before answering. Loneliness grows in silence. But so does courage. The difference is that courage speaks first. And because one quiet teenager found the bravery to ask a question millions had been afraid to say out loud, countless people discovered something they desperately needed to hear. You may feel alone, but you are never the only one. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.